Chapter 1. A World on the Brink. By the dawn of the 22nd century, it was undeniable. Our technological civilization was unraveling. In 2130, with Earth's population nearing 11 billion, the planet had become a living nightmare. Conventional oil reserves were depleted, and the last traces of coal were buried so deep they were nearly impossible to reach. Even uranium, once a cornerstone of energy, was running out. The days of easy energy were a distant memory. Developed nations scraped by on what little shale oil, natural gas, and tar sands they could find, but these resources were inefficient and costly to exploit. Solar and fusion energy, while promising, required immense technological resources and capital, leaving only the wealthiest nations able to harness them. As time went on, more and more of the world's economy was consumed by the desperate struggle to maintain energy supplies. Global recessions deepened, leading to a catastrophic financial collapse. The so-called developed world, while beset by endless recessions, unemployment, and foreign conflicts, managed to feed its populations. Barely. But in the overcrowded cities of India, Nigeria, and China, food production and distribution systems crumbled, starved by the lack of cheap energy. Climate change triggered devastating droughts, worsening the food crisis, and billions perished from hunger. Despite the ongoing collapse, overpopulation continued to soar, even as industrial development ground to a halt in most regions. Coastal cities drowned under rising sea levels. Disease outbreaks decimated hundreds of millions, and the ensuing refugee crisis plunged vast areas into chaos and anarchy. The United States and the Northern Confederacy fought brutal wars in the Arctic over the dwindling supplies of rare minerals, including yttrium, essential for high-temperature superconductors. Even those fortunate enough to be born in wealthy nations faced grim prospects. Life in massive urban slums or conscription into overseas wars. While humanity had made incredible technological strides, they were accessible only to a privileged few. Chapter 2. Project Icarus, The Last Hope. In the midst of this global despair, Project Icarus emerged as the final hope for a species not facing extinction, but an agonizing continuation of its nightmarish existence. Back in the late 2090s, a group of theoretical physicists stumbled upon a groundbreaking discovery: hypothetical states of particles in high-energy environments like those found in particle accelerators. This discovery, based on a non-unique generalization of quantum physics, revealed a new property of particles called case. Unlike mass and charge, case allowed for violations of energy conservation under certain conditions. The idea was to accelerate particles to near-light speeds, altering their case and creating casons that could, in theory, provide nearly unlimited amounts of clean, renewable energy. It was nothing short of a perpetual motion machine, built on the cutting edge of particle physics. When experiments in Europe confirmed the existence of quasons, governments around the world were quick to act. I can still recall the electrifying excitement when we realized that this technology might finally free us from the nightmare our world had become. In 2110, the U.S. federal government announced a massive $350 billion program to research quasar energy, with the aim of building a prototype reactor. Colossal particle accelerators were erected in the Nevada desert, and sophisticated labs were established to develop the nanotechnology required to harness casons and produce energy cells. I was one of over 10,000 technicians who toiled to construct and maintain the 5,000 TeV accelerator in Nevada. Everywhere from government scientists to politicians and corporate contractors, the message was clear: Project Icarus would be humanity's salvation. For a time, I shared that optimism. Chapter 3. The Dark Warnings. But soon, warnings began to surface. A small group of theoretical physicists and cosmologists sounded the alarm, suggesting that the high concentration of casons could lead to something far more dangerous: a gradual collapse of space-time from a false vacuum. According to their models, a dense cluster of casons could cause a tiny region of space to tunnel into a new configuration, disrupting atomic and molecular structures. This new region of space would slowly expand, doubling in size every minute, eventually engulfing the surrounding area in a catastrophic chain reaction. It was likened to Vonnegut's Ice Nine, a substance that could freeze entire bodies of water. Beginning with a volume as small as a Planck length, this new space-time configuration would eventually consume everything: the experimenters, the Nevada desert, and the entire planet. I followed the news closely, watching as these scientists were ridiculed in the media and eventually silenced in a series of accidents. My fear grew each time I tested the Kison concentration in the electromagnetic storage devices and found it dangerously close to the theoretical limit that could trigger a space-time collapse. Chapter 4. The Inevitable Collapse. Given these warnings, perhaps I should have been more prepared when the anomaly struck at the Northwest Defense Facility. I shouldn't have been surprised when 20 minutes later, I noticed the creeping void, a patch of absolute nothingness, forming around one of the tanks. And yet, it was with a sense of rising dread that I joined my fellow technicians in fleeing from the ever-expanding sphere of darkness that soon enveloped the control center. The panic spread quickly, but humanity didn't have long to react. Just 10 minutes later, the entire western United States was swallowed by the void, moving at a terrifying 60,000 miles per hour. Chapter 5. The Final Truth. Despite the devastation, Project Icarus had succeeded, though not in the way the public had been led to believe. Its true goal was not to save humanity from extinction, but to offer a merciful end to its suffering. It was a calculated, humane decision, one that ensured we would not endure an eternity of agony. Project Icarus had always been a carefully orchestrated endgame, a well-planned exit for a species that had reached the end of its rope.